Some cards were born balanced, others were born to cause chaos. Mega Knight, deleting your entire push like it's nothing. Firecracker, always hitting your tower, no skill, no counterplay. And the Elixir Golem, well, don't even get me started. These cards didn't just shift the meta, they broke players, split the community, and turned matches into arguments. This is every controversial card in Clash Royale ever. Number 1. Hog Rider. Few cards have sparked more debate, more memes, and more burnout than the Hog Rider. At face value, it seems simple. 4 Elixir, jumps over the river, slams the tower, done. But that simplicity is exactly what makes it so controversial. For over 9 years, Hog Rider has remained the go-to win condition, dominating ladder with unmatched popularity. Even today, when it's arguably weaker in the meta thanks to Dagger Duchess and Cannoneer, you still see it everywhere. And players are tired. For many, the Hog Rider represents stagnation. Same plays, same integrations, same rage. It's not just its usage, it's the fact that Hog Rider always finds a way to get at least one hit unless countered perfectly. That one hit, game-changing in top-level play. For casuals, just annoying. It's not really overpowered, that's the crazy part. Statistically, it's been balanced for years, but when you faced it 8 times in a row, it doesn't feel fair. It feels forced, and that's where the resentment comes in. Free-to-play players use it because they have to. Top players use it because it's efficient, but everyone else, they're just sick of seeing it. Even worse, Hog is rarely touched in balance updates. It's a sacred cow. Meanwhile, everything else gets nerfed, reworked, or replaced, but not him. He just keeps yelling, "Hog Rider!" and charging forward like it's 2016. And maybe that is the real reason it's controversial. Number 2. Expo. There's no card in Clash Royale more emotionally polarizing than Expo. For some, it's a test of precision, a high-skill, low-margin masterpiece of timing, cycling, and control. For others, it is a 6-minute mental breakdown just waiting to happen. Here's the reality. Expo is not broken, but it feels broken. It's one of the few cards that can lock onto your tower from the other side of the arena and win the game without ever crossing the river. One good lock, just one, and the rest of the match becomes a miserable war of attrition. Defensive Tesla, archers in the back, log, Ice Spirit, defensive Expo cycle, rocket, GG. And yet Expo players insist it's fair, that it's high skill, that it's underrated, and maybe they're right. Maybe it is hard to win with. Maybe it does take discipline, but that doesn't make it fun to fight. Because what people hate about Expo isn't just how it plays, it's how it feels. Every match drags, every interaction is a reset, and when you finally get close to a push, it's met with a pre-planted Tesla, a distraction knight, and a perfectly timed log. And if they're losing, they'll stall, still cycle, still chip away, not out of hope, but out of habit. Even many Expo players admit they hate the stereotype their own community has created, stalling every game, rocketing towers in triple, dragging out lost matches for no reason. Expo didn't break Clash Royale, it just broke the will to keep playing, and that's why it's one of the most controversial cards ever, because it's not overpowered, it's unbearable. But if you think that's bad, wait until you see what's next. Number 3. Firecracker. 3 Elixir. That is really all it takes to ruin your entire push. Firecracker isn't just a controversial card, she is infuriating. A unit so deceptively annoying, so disproportionately effective that players have called for nerfs, reworks, and even her outright deletion. And it's not because she's unbeatable, it's because she forces you to play a certain way or suffer. Her knockback, her splash, her range? Dear God. She can chip you down while standing in a different zip code, and unless you're packing arrows, you're gonna see her over and over and over and over and over and over again. But it does get worse, because of course, Firecracker has an evolution, and it's been ridiculous since day one. Even after the nerfs, her evolved form deals massive splash, and lives longer than she has any right to. She's not overpowered in the traditional sense, but she warps the entire game around herself. Arrows now shot up in 30% of decks, not because players like it, but because they have to. Firecracker has turned Clash Royale into a game where fun decks get pushed out, just because they don't have a clean answer to one annoying girl with a firework cannon. People hate her not because she wins games, they hate her because she ruins them. But what makes Firecracker truly evil is who she always shows up with. The King of Midladder, the jumpiest, splashiest, rage-chippiest card in Clash Royale history. Number 4. Mega Knight. Ask anyone why they hate Mega Knight and you'll get a different answer every time. He's overpowered, he's everywhere, he ruins every push I build. And the truth, they're all right. Mega Knight isn't hated because he's broken, he's hated because he's exhausting. A 7 elixir panic button with a jump that deletes swarms, a spawn splash that punishes bridge spam, and just enough health to make every defense feel like a chore. Even when you can counter him, you're often the one left scrambling, because Mega Knight never comes alone. He's backed by Firecracker, wall breakers, bats, and players who think pressing 2 buttons equals skill. But the real issue, how common he is. In Midladder, Mega Knight is the meta. Over-leveled, overused, and impossible to avoid. You can play perfect defense for 2 minutes. Then boom, he jumps in and your entire game plan collapses. And God help you if you're underleveled. Play safe or get stomped. But if you have no trouble countering Mega Knight, you're built different. And if you're built different, you should definitely be subscribed already. Go ahead, hit that button. You've earned it. Number 5. Elixir Golem. There's no card in Clash Royale more schizophrenic than Elixir Golem. Sometimes it's a walking 3-crown machine, a tidal wave of purple blobs, healers, rage spells, and cloned madness that floods your tower and melts everything. Other times it's a joke, a free win, but love it or hate it, everyone has an opinion. Some call it the no-brain win condition. Spam E-Golem at the bridge, drop Night Witch and healer behind it, maybe toss in an E-Drag and a clone if you're feeling spicy, and then pray. Others see it as a low-skill trap, fun until you're wiped off the map by an Executioner and Tornado, because that's the core of what makes Elixir Golem controversial. You're giving your opponent elixir. That concept alone breaks the fundamentals of Clash Royale. You're supposed to out-trade your opponent, not fund them. But E-Golem bends that rule. He lets players trade intelligence for brute force. If your push connects, the game's over. If it doesn't, you handed the enemy 4 elixir and a free counter push for dessert. And it's not just about balance, it's emotional. Facing E-Golem makes you feel insulted, like your opponent isn't trying, like they shouldn't be winning, like the game is rewarding chaos instead of strategy. That's why even players who win against it still hate it. It cheapens the victory. It creates an experience that feels less like a battle and more like a coin flip. E-Golem isn't broken. He's just built to break something, and that something is usually your patience. But as frustrating as that is, it is nothing compared to a bird that refused to die. And we'll get there eventually. Number 6. Royal Recruits. The card that plays itself. 7 elixir, 6 bodies, 2 lanes, 0 effort. Royal Recruits are the embodiment of low-skill frustration. They're not flashy, they're not fast, they don't even hit hard, but they demand your full attention every single time. You drop them at the back, and now your opponent is playing a 2-lane puzzle they never signed up for. No splash in hand, get wrecked. And that's why people hate recruits. It's not because they're overpowered, it's because they remove decision-making. You don't need precision, you don't need predictions, you don't need a brain. You just drop them and force your opponent to prove they have the exact tools they need, in the exact moment they need them. And the worst part, if you lose to them, it doesn't feel like a loss. It feels like you got outweighted, not outplayed. Like the game was on autopilot and you just ran out of time. Royal Recruits aren't a strategy, they're a test of patience. And for many players, that's a test they are tired of failing. Number 7. Phoenix. There was a time when Phoenix was Clash Royale. Not part of the game, not just another troop, it was the meta. The rage, the mirror, the pump, the chaos. One bird, one egg, one unstoppable loop of destruction. When Phoenix was released, it didn't just soar, it exploded. Deck after deck in top ladder, grand challenges flooded with Phoenix cycle, rage spam, mirror cheese. No tanks needed, no thought, just spam birds and win. And if you managed to kill it, good luck killing the egg, because if you didn't, boom, rebirth, round 2, a phoenix that refused to die, backed by Elixir Golem, Monk, and a wall of rage-fueled insanity. Players watched their towers melt, while Supercell watched in silence, until they couldn't anymore, and the nerfs came. One, then another, rebirth delay increased, egg HP reduced, attack speed damage, and today, Phoenix is finally balanced, usable, maybe even underrated in the right decks, but the days of triple Phoenix spam are gone. Now it sits quietly. Still decent, still useful, but never forgotten. Number 8. Monk. When Monk first entered the arena, no one knew how to stop him. At just 4 elixir, he was a walking wall, a mini P.E.K.K.A tank with the log built into his fists, and a god tier ability that could reflect spells, projectiles, and even arrows back at the tower. He was a counter to everything. But what made the Monk truly terrifying was his versatility. He wasn't some squishy backline support. He walked up, knocked everything back every third hit, reflected an entire push, and dared you to try to stop him while he tanked off your army. You couldn't pull him, you couldn't knock him back, you couldn't even damage him if his ability was active. And that was the problem. Monk wasn't fun to play against. Players raged as he invalidated half their deck with a single tap of his hands. He slowed the game down, forced awkward counters, and turned defensive spells into self-sabotage. And the worst part, his counters were either hard to use or didn't work. You needed Inferno Dragon, Mini P.E.K.K.A, or Electro Wizard, or you just got bullied. Eventually, Supercell had to step in. They upped his cost to 5 elixir, and suddenly he was balanced, maybe even slightly underwhelming. But to many, that broken 4 elixir version never left their nightmares. Today, he's still pretty good, strong in the right hands, amazing as a frontliner for Royal Giant decks, but that fear factor he used to have, it's gone. But if you think that Monk was unfun to face, just wait until we talk about a card that literally made players uninstall the game. Number 9. Elite Barbarians. No card in Clash Royale history has haunted the mid-ladder experience like Elite Barbarians. They weren't always controversial. In fact, when they were first introduced, many considered them weak. But then came January of 2016, the infamous balance update that turned E-Barbs into monsters. Suddenly, they could delete towers in a blink if you made one mistake. And here's the catch, they weren't strong because of strategy, they were strong because of levels. E-Barbs were cheap to upgrade. Over time, Supercell nerfed them hard. Their dominance faded, and in competitive play, they never really mattered. But on ladder, a bit of a different story. They still carry a stigma. They're not broken anymore, they're not meta-defining, but they'll always be one of the most hated cards in Clash Royale history. Number 10. Rocket. It's the one spell that doesn't need to touch the battlefield to change the game. Just knowing your opponent might have Rocket makes you second guess every play. Stack support troops, risky. Drop a big push, risky. Breathe near the bridge, risky. Rocket is the only card that turns anticipation into anxiety. For 6 elixir, it offers raw deletion. No slow burn, no fancy mechanics, just click, boom. And everything you built, gone. Players hate Rocket, not just because it's powerful, but because it feels unfair. A well-timed fireball can be skillful, a lightning might be precise, but Rocket is unapologetic. It punishes you for playing well. It rewards players not for strategy, but for sitting back and waiting to punish your push. And when it lands, it hurts. It's especially brutal in mid-ladder, where players often don't space out their troops well. Rocket isn't the most versatile spell, it's not the most used, but it is, without question, the most hated, the most polarizing, and the most controversial spell Clash Royale has ever known. Still, nothing tilts players more than a spell you don't even see coming. Number 11. Freeze. Let's be real, every single one of you has lost at least one game because of a free spell that your opponent kept hidden for 3 agonizing minutes, only to drop it at the perfect moment. Whether it's paired with a lumberjack and balloon combo or used to save a 1 HP Inferno Dragon you thought was under control, seeing your troops and buildings frozen in place while the enemy capitalizes on it is nothing short of maddening. And don't try to defend it, calling it high risk, high reward. Sure, I get it. Freezing my defense gives me a chance to build a bigger push, and yes, I understand that if they slightly mistime their freeze, it can result in a 4 elixir blunder that practically hands me the game. But guess what? I don't care. None of these occasional wins from a poorly timed freeze feel remotely as satisfying as the pure frustration of losing a game because of one perfectly executed freeze spell. It's like those moments where everything's going your way and then bam, your tower is gone and you're left staring at the screen in disbelief. Every victory against a bad freeze pales in comparison to the sting of a single loss because of a good one. And maybe that's because of human nature, maybe I'm just salty. But luckily, the freeze spell isn't that overpowered anymore. It used to have a duration nearly quadruple of what it has now, and it had a way bigger radius, similar to the poison radius. Imagine a freeze spell like that combined with whatever monstrosity of a push you can imagine, and freeze doesn't even feel like that much of a gimmick when you realize there are entire archetypes built around it. Ever heard of Graveyard Freeze? It is one of the most frustrating strategies in Clash Royale. What makes Graveyard Freeze so maddening is that it forces you into a no-win scenario. If you don't have the right counters in rotation or can't predict the freeze, you're toast. I guess iced. And even if you do manage to counter the graveyard itself with something like a Valkyrie, a well-timed freeze can still guarantee enough skeleton damage to put your tower within spell range. It's not about the combo itself, it is the psychological warfare. You know it's coming, but you're never quite sure when or how they'll play it, and that constant second guessing can throw off your entire game plan. It's a strategy that preys on mistakes, small openings, or even just bad card rotation, and the worst part, a perfectly executed Graveyard Freeze doesn't even feel like you had a chance. Your defense is frozen, your tower is surrounded, and you're left wondering why you didn't just bring your own freeze spell to fight fire with fire. Or more like freeze with freeze. But if freeze is frustrating, these next two spells, they don't even try to hide how troll they are. Number 12. Clone plus Mirror. There's a fine line between fun and infuriating. Let's start with Clone. At first glance, it seems harmless, a spell that doesn't deal damage, doesn't stun, doesn't even slow, just duplicates your push with 1 HP versions. Pretty cute, right? Until your screen explodes with a cloned Lava Hound, Balloon, and Skeleton Barrel, and your tower evaporates in 2 seconds. That is the controversy. Clone doesn't earn wins. It steals them. It rewards unpredictable, low-skill plays that work purely because your opponent wasn't expecting you to do something that dumb. It's not reliable, it's not consistent, but when it works, it makes even the worst player look like a genius, and that is what makes it infuriating. Pair it with Rage or Lumber Loon Push, and you're suddenly facing an unstoppable wall of cloned chaos. It punishes perfect defense with a surprise gotcha moment. No counterplay, no mercy. And then there's Mirror. It's not flashy, it's not consistent, and honestly, it's rarely relevant in the meta, unless Supercell accidentally releases something broken enough to be worth mirroring. That's what makes Mirror so frustrating. Most of the time, it feels like a gimmick, a card you throw in for fun or trolling. But when a card like Phoenix or Goblin Machine hits the game over-tuned, Mirror suddenly becomes meta-defining. Not because of deep strategy, but because duplicating a broken card makes it twice as broken. It's never in a good spot. It's either completely underwhelming or completely busted. There's never an in-between, and that's what makes it so controversial. To me, it feels like even Supercell doesn't really know what to do with it. Balance it too weak and no one touches it. Buff it and it becomes a win more button for cards that didn't need help in the first place. Number 13. Tornado. One of the most frustrating spells to deal with has to be Tornado. This spell has an uncanny ability to ruin your carefully planned pushes and make your defense crumble. Its primary function of grouping troops together can feel outright infuriating when your opponent uses it to set up an easy King Tower activation, giving them a massive advantage for the rest of the match. But of course, it doesn't stop there. The Tornado's ability to pull all your troops into a tight cluster means they become prime targets for splash damage units like the Executioner or Wizard. One well-timed Tornado can completely erase your push. as troops get caught in a devastating combo of area damage and control. It's not just the direct impact that makes Tornado annoying, it's the versatility. Whether your opponent is pulling a Hog Rider off course, redirecting a balloon, or setting up the perfect synergy with cards like Baby Dragon or Electro Dragon, the Tornado always seems to find a way to turn the tide of battle in the most frustrating ways. And let's not forget just how devastating the Tornado can be when paired with cards like Electro Giant or the evolved Electro Dragon. The synergy between these cards is downright brutal. What makes this combination even more frustrating is the sheer efficiency of it. The Tornado not only clears the path for these electrifying units, but also ensures that your troops are grouped together, maximizing the damage dealt by their abilities. Whether it's your defensive line or your offensive push, the outcome is the same. Everything dies, and there's nothing left for you to do but watch helplessly as your carefully planned strategy gets obliterated. It's not just about the damage, it's about the sense of helplessness that makes this pairing so aggravating. Once the Tornado connects, your troops are stuck in place, unable to escape the relentless barrage of electricity. Even if you've got a solid defense in place, the Tornado ensures that it falls apart, leaving you scrambling to recover. Few cards in Clash Royale have such a way of making you feel completely outplayed, and when Tornado is paired with these powerhouse cards, it becomes a game-ending nightmare. Number 14. Miner. The Miner doesn't scream OP. He doesn't make rage compilations like Mega Knight or Firecracker, but ask any seasoned player and they will tell you. Miner has never been bad. Since his release, Miner has been a cornerstone of competitive play. He's been nerfed multiple times. His tower damage was reduced, his crown interactions adjusted, and yet he just keeps coming back. Miner poison, Miner wall breakers, Miner mortar, control, cycle, spam. The man does it all, and that's what makes him so controversial. Mid-ladder players despise Miner decks, not because they're flashy, but because they're boring, oppressive, and take every match to overtime. It's 5 minutes of chip damage, perfect defense, and zero room to break through. You'll never see a Miner rage clip on YouTube, but you'll feel the pain after 5 minutes of trying to break through while your tower slowly bleeds out. And that's why Miner isn't just strong, he's silently, consistently, and controversially one of the best cards ever made. Number 15. Evo Knight. When the Evolved Knight was first revealed, nobody expected the storm that was coming. On paper, it looked solid, a stronger, faster Knight. In practice, it was a disaster. At launch in August of 2023, the Evolved Knight had 30% more health, 10% more damage, and a 0.9 second hit speed. But the real controversy was his passive. He took 80% less damage while attacking. No, that's not a typo, 80%. Suddenly, a 3-elixir knight was walking through Sparky shots, tanking entire minion hordes and ignoring musketeers like they weren't even there. Expo players quit, Sparky players cried, and Graveyard Miner and Logbait players, they abused the hell out of him. The outrage was pretty instant. Reddit was filled with clips of Knight casually marching through defenses like a boss fight, and while some players celebrated his insane value, others called it the worst balanced evolution ever released. And then came the patch parade. In just 1 year, the Evolved Knight was nerfed 6 separate times. Damage reduction down to 60%, hit points reduced, attack speed slowed. He got patched so many times, players joked Supercell was trying to erase him from memory. But here's the twist, even after all of that, he's still good. Not overpowered, not broken, but good. Because that damage reduction, even at 60%, is still insanely useful when played right. Number 16. Evo Archers. When Evolved Archers dropped, most players shrugged. No chain lightning, no stuns, no explosions, just archers? And then people actually used them, and everything changed. Their power shot, which activated from 5 tiles or more, dealt double damage. Now combine that with a 6.5 tile range, longer than Royal Giant, and you have a 3-elixir unit deleting support troops before they could even see her. But the controversy really exploded when players realized one horrifying truth. They survived arrows. Suddenly, 3-elixir archers were outliving one of the most common counterspells in the game. You'd fire arrows, they'd survive, then they'd shoot back. It flipped entire matchups upside down, and people were furious. By the time you countered him, your push was already dead. Or worse, your tower was. Reddit blew up, of course. Pros started abusing them, mid-ladder players had no answers, and over time Supercell cut the power shot's damage, reduced their range, and eventually made them vulnerable to arrows yet again. Today, evolved archers aren't the menace they once were, but they're still controversial, still elite, still terrifying in the right hands. Number 17. Evo Valkyrie. Evolved Valkyrie is one of the most polarizing evolution cards ever released, not because she was overpowered, not because she was weak, but because no one could agree on what she actually was. Some players called her broken, others said she was useless, and the truth was, she was both. It all depended on the hands that held her. I think this is the first time I'm talking about this card on the channel, but her evolution wasn't flashy, just a subtle buff to her HP and a mini tornado effect every time she attacked. But that small twist, it changed everything. She could pull troops into her range, clump supports together, ruin placements, delay tanks. And if the opponent didn't know you had her, the first reveal could instantly flip the match. One moment they're building a massive push, the next second your Valkyrie walks into frame, pulls in minions, skeletons, goblins, everything, and clears it all. Tower saved, elixir lead stolen. And because her pull works on defense, offense, and even support synergy, she created moments of absolute brilliance or complete disaster. In the right hands, she didn't just control troops, she controlled the game, if you knew how. In the wrong hands, she felt clunky and slow, and that's what made her so controversial. Not everyone could unlock her potential. But don't get comfortable, because the next evolution was so broken it turned skeletons into win conditions. Number 18. Evo Skeletons. Evo Skellies were supposed to be a joke. No HP, no real damage, harmless, right? Wrong. Because at launch, evolved skeletons spawned instantly, so fast that not even Zap or Log could stop them. Their initial attack speed just 0.4 seconds. It sounds small, but that fraction made them 25% faster than they are today. They became win conditions. Paired with Royal Hogs, they were unstoppable. One mistake, one tiny overcommitment, and you'd watch helplessly as 2 waves of evolved skellies obliterated your lanes in an instant. Eventually, Supercell nerfed their numbers. They now spawn in 3s, not 4, their attack speed is slower, and their once insane presence is pretty much gone. Today, they're just another evolution. Solid, nothing special. They fill a slot, they do their job, and most players don't even flinch when they see them. But back in 2023, they weren't just controversial, they were game-breaking. Number 19. Evo Bomber. In the early previews to content creators, Supercell had made a baffling decision. The Evo Bomber could survive arrows. A 2 elixir card, surviving a spell that was supposed to counter it. The news spread fast. Reddit blew up, veteran players and top creators called it insane, game-breaking, and downright stupid, and thankfully, Supercell listened. Just before release, they scrapped the arrow resistance, nearly avoiding disaster. But even in its toned-down form, Bomber was still broken. It evolved every other cycle. Its bombs bounced 3 tiles, hitting multiple troops multiple times per throw. It became a 2 elixir magic archer, but more consistent and without the awkward positioning. You couldn't leave it alone. If you did, your tower melted. Not chipped, but melted. Pro players dropped magic archer entirely in favor of bomber. Ladder was flooded. Mid-ladder was cooked. It wasn't just strong, it was unfun and broke the flow of the game. Supercell tried to reel it back in. They doubled the cycle requirement, cut the bounce range, and eventually removed the stacking damage effect entirely. Today, Evo Bomber is still great, but no longer controversial, no longer debated, just another splash unit in a sea of options. But if you were there in early 2024, you would remember when one little skeleton with a bomb nearly destroyed the arena. Number 20. Goblin Drill. When Goblin Drill was first unleashed, Clash Royale changed. It wasn't just strong, it was infuriating. The moment it hit your tower, a goblin would immediately leap out and start stabbing. No spawn delay, no time to react, just instant chip damage. Then came the real pain. 3 more popped out on death. Oh, and that burrow speed, 25% faster than it is today. You couldn't stop it in time even if you saw it coming. It was one of the most controversial cards of its era, not because it was the best, but because nobody knew what it was supposed to be. A spawner, a building, a goblin barrel replacement, whatever it was, it left a mark. Today, Goblin Drill has settled down. It still shows up in control decks and is still deadly if ignored, but the chaos, the confusion, the forum wars, those were something else. And when we take a look back at Clash Royale's most divisive cards, the Drill absolutely deserves its place in this Hall of Madness. Number 21. The Elixir Collector. Some cards deal damage, some cards defend, but Elixir Collector, it breaks the rules of the game. From day one, this card was different. A building that didn't attack, a card that didn't defend, and yet it could win you the game. No damage, no pressure, just economy. If left alone, it didn't give you your elixir back, it gave you more. Suddenly, you weren't just building pushes, you were building entire empires. And that's what made it so controversial, because if you didn't punish it instantly, you were doomed. The collector warped the natural flow of the game. Matches stopped being about trading elixir and became a race to deny advantage. But it was also a gamble. Investing 6 elixir into a pump meant leaving yourself wide open. Miss the timing, misread the deck, suddenly you were the one losing your tower. That's why Elixir Collector divided the community. Some loved its strategic depth, others hated its swingy, unfair outcomes. At the highest level, pros even complained that the collector ruined elixir counting, making the game feel less about skill and more about brute force economy. And yet, Supercell kept it alive. Number 22. Golden Knight. When the Golden Knight entered the arena, he was flashy, unique, and incredibly annoying. His chain dash mechanic sounded fun on paper, but in practice, it created chaos. Matches were lost not because of bad plays, but because the Knight randomly dashed through 5 units and still somehow clipped the tower. He wasn't broken like the Archer Queen, he wasn't useless like Skeleton King, he was something worse. Unpredictable. Sometimes a god, sometimes a clown. Always frustrating. Supercell tried to fix him, they nerfed his dash range, slowed his ability, and even reworked how his targeting worked. But no matter what they changed, it was never quite right. Even after all the nerfs, Golden Knight remains controversial. Not because he's overpowered, but because you'll never know what he'll do next. And that's exactly why some players love him and others want him deleted. Number 23. Archer Queen. When the Archer Queen arrived, she didn't just make a splash, she rewrote the rules. She could vanish, boost her damage, and shred entire pushes, all for just 5 elixir. You'd spend 10 elixir setting up a perfect push and then watch it disappear in 3 seconds of invisibility-fueled chaos. At her peak, she wasn't just strong, she was everywhere. 9 out of the top 10 decks used her. Ladder, tournaments, even World Finals, she dominated the meta. And the controversy? Oh boy, there was plenty. The log didn't knock her back. Mega Knight jumped but didn't hit her. Tornado sometimes pulled her and sometimes didn't. Players weren't just confused, they were furious. Was it a bug? Was it intentional? Nobody really knew. And that unreliable invincibility made her one of the most frustrating cards to face in the game's history. Supercell tried to nerf her, longer cooldowns, shorter cloak duration, but nothing truly stopped her. Her sheer value per elixir was unmatched. Even today, after all the fixes, she remains a top-tier champion. Versatile, deadly, and divisive. She might not be the most broken card anymore, but she's still the queen. Number 24. Boss Bandit. She's flashy, she's tanky, she teleports across the arena like it's her personal highlight reel, and she's pissing off half the community. Boss Bandit became the face of Clash Royale's growing frustration with over-designed cards. For 6 elixir, she dashes, teleports, deals burst damage, and still somehow lives long enough to connect with your tower. And if she does connect, you might as well kiss that Princess Tower goodbye. She's the Mega Knight of champions, but flashier, faster, and somehow even more annoying. Players were spending 8 to 10 elixir just to stop one card, and still watching her dash through with 1 HP. For some, she was a new fun threat. For others, she's a mistake that proves Supercell stopped testing their cards before release. Love her or hate her, Boss Bandit is pure chaos in champion form. But sometimes it's not the power or mechanics that cause chaos, it's the design itself. Like, why does this next card feel like the most boring boss fight of your life? Number 25. Bowler. If you've ever played Graveyard, Lumberloon, or Splash Yard, you have probably loved the Bowler. If you ever played against those decks, you probably want to uninstall the game. Bowler is one of Clash Royale's most polarizing cards, not because of flashy damage, but because of how oppressive he feels. He rolls in, flattens entire pushes, and then casually strolls to your tower while you're scrambling to respond. Reddit has labeled him toxic. Players spam chicken emotes when he hits the board, and yet He's not even broken, he's just annoying. Bowler punishes swarms, punishes bridge spam, and if paired with freeze or tornado, oh gosh. And yet despite all the hate, he's not even that meta anymore. He's just the face of slow, defensive pain, a card that reminds you that Clash Royale isn't always about outplaying. Sometimes it's about outwalling. So is Bowler toxic? Maybe not by stats, but emotionally, absolutely. Number 26. Witch. Despite all the frustration, Witch isn't even that good. She's slow, clunky, she's barely viable outside of off-meta decks or mid-ladder nightmares. And yet, she feels like a boss battle. That's the Witch paradox. She's not overpowered, she's just emotionally overbearing. One of the most annoying cards in Clash Royale precisely because of how little counterplay some players feel like they have. But then came her evolution, and the community lost it. At launch, Evo Witch didn't just spawn skeletons, she healed from them. Every time a skeleton died, Witch gained HP, one by one, drip by drip. She broke draft events, she destroyed tank decks, she laughed at Valkyrie. Players begged Supercell for nerfs, Reddit flamed her non-stop, and dozens of threads called her the worst designed card in months. And while Supercell did nerf her just before her wide release, the damage was done. Evo Witch became the poster child for pay-to-win evolutions, a symbol of Supercell's tendency to overbuff new content for launch hype, then gut it later. Today, she's balanced and playable, a bit clunky if I'm being honest. But the memory of her design, healing off half a dozen skeletons while you watched your tower melt, still haunts players to this day. So is Witch controversial? Yes. In every form and in every arena tier, from mid-ladder range to pro-level draft events, she sparked one universal emotion: frustration. Number 27. Wizard. Wizard might be the most hated card in mid-ladder. To some, he's fine. Just splash, just a 5 elixir troop, just, fireball him. But to others, he represents everything wrong with mid-ladder. Wizard isn't hard to counter. He's unfair when you're under-leveled. No one rages when a musketeer takes down their push, but Wizard, he doesn't trade fairly. He obliterates. For years, Wizard was ignored at the top. No viable decks, no pro usage, just a casual crutch. Then came the Evolution Wizard. Suddenly, the Wizard was a meta monster. Decks that never used Wizard before now built around him. Even pro players started calling for nerfs. But those days are gone. Supercell reined him in. His evolution got nerfed, his dominance faded. And today, he's just mostly a mid-ladder menace. Not because he's broken, but because he's overleveled in every deck. Number 28. Magic Archer. If you know how to use him, you love him. If you don't, you absolutely hate him. He's quiet, precise, deadly from across the map, and worst of all, he punishes you for a misplacement you didn't even know you made. A single tile off and suddenly your entire defense evaporates from a laser beam you couldn't even see coming. And that's why Magic Archer has become one of the most hated cards in the game, not because he's overpowered, but because he exposes bad placement. He humiliates you, and nobody likes being outplayed by a line. But here's the thing, Magic Archer was never designed for casuals. He's a high-skill, high-reward nightmare. And that's exactly why top players love him, and mid-ladder wants him deleted. Number 29. Graveyard. No card in Clash Royale history has caused more rage quits, panic drops, or defensive misplays than Graveyard. A 5 elixir spell that spawns a random army of skeletons anywhere on the map, usually right on top of your princess tower. I mean, you know the drill, you panic drop a Valk, maybe a bomber, but the RNG says nope, skeleton spawn in the one tile you are not defending. And that's Graveyard's power. It doesn't overwhelm you with raw stats, it breaks your mind. And for years, this card was everywhere. Top ladder, competitive, mid ladder, even meme decks. But that hate, it came from how hard it was to counter consistently. You couldn't just defend. You had to guess where the skeletons would spawn, time your drops perfectly, and hope they didn't just pop out on the opposite side. Even pro players couldn't always keep up. So Supercell tweaked it multiple times. They reduced the duration, toned down the RNG, and tried to make it less frustrating. Today, Graveyard isn't everywhere anymore, but when it shows up, it still feels like the most unfair card in Clash Royale. But this is just a glimpse. Graveyard has one of the craziest histories in Clash Royale. It was buggy, it was broken, it was beloved and hated all at once. So if you want to understand why players still argue about this card almost a decade later, Tap this video next. It is the full story of Graveyard and it's one of the wildest rides in Clash Royale history. I'll see you there.